do 15 eura, ali stavi je u ruke LeBrona Jamesa i ona vredi nekih dobrih 30-40 miliona eura. Ili ako bi u moje ruke stavio tenisku lopticu, ona možda vredi nekih 4 do 5 eura, ali ako je staviš u ruke Novaka Đokovića, onda ona vredi 100 ili nešto malo više miliona eura. Jer vidiš, sve zavisi od toga u čijim je rukama. Ili ako bi u moje ruke stavio, na primjer, bejsbol palicu, mogla bi možda da vredi nekih 7 do 10 eura, ali stavi je u ruke Majka Trauta i ona vredi nekih 80 miliona eura godišnje. Jer sve zavisi od toga u čijim je rukama. Ako bi u moje ruke stavio štap, sa tim štapom bih vjerojatno mogao da oteram neku divlju životinju ili bih pak mogao da lupam u šerpu, ali ako taj isti štap staviš u ruke Mojsija, on njime razdvaja Crveno more, jer sve zavisi u čijim je rukama. 5 hlebova i 2 ribe bile bi verovatno dovoljno da nahrane mene, ali ako ih staviš u ruke Hrista, on njima hrani hiljade. Ako bi u moje ruke stavio pračku, ona bi postala samo to, obična dečija igračka, ali stavio u ruke cara Davida i on njome ubija Golijata. Sve zavisi u čijim je rukama. Vidiš, u svojim rukama imam i nekoliko eksera. Sa njime bih verovatno, u najboljem mogućem slučaju, mogao da učestim neku konstrukciju ili da zakucam jednu dasku, ali ako ih staviš u ruke Isusa Hrista, onda su oni simbol spasenja, nade u večnost koja je poklonjena onima koji ga vole i koji veruju u njega. Sve zavisi od toga u čijim su rukama. Ako brige, nade, ono o čemu razmišljaš u budućnosti, šta očekuješ, ostanu u tvojim rukama, pa neće biti samo to, ali ako ih staviš u Hristove ruke, onda će on ih razreši. Jer u njegovim rukama tvoj i moj život je potpuno siguran. Sve zavisi u čije ruke nešto staviš. Zato bih volao na početku bogosluženja da se molimo upravo njemu i da stavimo svoj život u njegove ruke. Oče naš, dobar si prema nama zato što definitivno u tvojim rukama sve dobije sasvim drugačiju vrednost, naš život. On dobije potpuno drugačiju vrednost. I na ovom bogosluženju, Oče naš, to je ono što želimo. Želimo da utičeš na nas tako da se poveća vrednost još više naše života. Nisi mogao da učiniš to više značajnije nego da umreš za nas i time pokazao koliko vredimo i koliko smo ti značajni. Iz toga duše sveti, sve misli, ideje, sve što budemo čuli, razumeli, shvatili, pomozi da primenimo i tako da tu vrednost, slavu Božju odsjajavamo gde god da jesmo. To molim u Hristovo ime. Amen.
Pastor Julian Kastrati trenutno služi kao okružni pastor u Manchesteru, Engleskoj. Rođen je i odrastao u Tirani, glavnom gradu Albanije. Jedan je od prvih članova Adventističke crkve u Albaniji i jedan od prva 2 albanska pastora. Počevši od jula 1993. godine, Julian služi u Adventističkoj crkvi već više od 2,5 decenije. Na različitim pozicijama, kao što su stariji pastor, osnivač crkava, izvršni sekretar, kao i direktor različitih odeljenja. On ima srce za osvajanje novih polja i služio je kao internacionalni govornik u zemljama kao što su Hrvatska, Slovenija, Švedska, Njemačka i Australija. Julian voli nove izazove, neguje misao na razgovore, voli propovedanje, inovativni evangelizam, proučavanje Biblije u malim grupama i uživa u dobroj hrani.
Zdravo dečki, prijatelji u Srbiji, pozdrav iz Manchestera. Nadam se da kada se emituje ova video poruka, svi budete sigurni i zdravi. Bilo bi lepo nastaviti razgovor na srpskom, ali niko nije savršen, čak i ako dolazi iz Tirane, Albanije. Preći ću na engleski jezik sada. Friends, we're living in very uncertain times. And by the time I'm recording this, churches remain closed, and I estimate it will probably be so in early May when you watch this video. And I send my greetings to all of you in Serbia. So many life questions come to mind, so many whys that we want to ask today. And because we are human, we sometimes believe, but also doubt. Now today I want to talk to you about that, about doubt. I'm aware that the word in Serbian is sumnja, but I want to make it clear from the beginning that I'm not talking about skepticism or suspicion, although they are synonyms. I'm talking about the whys of life that come naturally to us as believers now, whether we are in the Christian faith and new so, or whether we are well established into it and have been in church for many, many years. Now, honestly, we don't talk about it much at church, do we? It's not a favorite subject at Sabbath school. Now, I find this fascinating, because there are entire books of the Bible that deal with this issue. The book of Job, Ecclesiastes, Lamentations, Habakkuk. Now, many of the Psalms touch on the theme of doubt. They actually, when we read certain Psalms, they make us feel slightly uncomfortable, because they talk about the feeling of being abandoned by God or God being absent. Many of us wonder, why can't I get a job? Why did my parents' marriage fall apart? Why did I fail the most important exam in the university? Why did my best friend leave the church? Now I, for one, I have doubts. I have many life questions. I have to be honest with you that I don't have always answers for them, even though I'm a pastor. Now, I'm not entirely sure whether a person can be a Christian and not experience doubts every now and then. But that's just me. Now, I think that faith requires sometimes some why questions in order to become strengthened. Have you noticed that things that you used to doubt before, but are now clear about it, you believe in those things more than other things that you took just for granted? Now, I think everybody has experiences these questions and doubts in life. Now, if any of you have arrived at the place where all your doubts are gone and all your questions are answered, well, take a deep breath, relax, because you, my friend, have arrived in heaven. I think, it's not realistic. Okay, I know one person that has absolutely no doubts about something. This is my 4-year-old daughter, Albulena. She's consistent about this. She says all the time, "Daddy, you are old." Now, I tried different techniques to change her mind, even sometimes use some nice cream and, but the answer is always, "Tata, ti si star." Nema šansa. Now, unfortunately, part of the coronavirus frenzy are the conspiracy theories and myths that are attached. Now, they are essentially fake news, but you would be surprised how many people get caught on them. There are many, many myths. I'm just going to mention only 3. You can get coronavirus if you order parcels from China. Or the pandemic was caused by 5G technology, mobile phone technology. And probably everyone's favorite. You can beat the virus by eating copious amounts of garlic. Now, many friends that have been in the same car with me, even good friends from Serbia, they will remember that I love garlic as much as the next guy. Now, how I wish to be true, for it to be true that garlic could perform some corona healing magic. But again, nema šansa. It's just like the other myths. It's fake news. Now, having said this, garlic does help with one thing in the times that we're living. Social distancing. It works like a charm. And come to think of it, it's probably why my wife made me record this video right here in this distant dark corner, and I'm trying to keep a low profile, Now, just like with the coronavirus myths, there are many myths, dear friends, about doubt. I will mention 3. Now, myth number 1. Many people think that doubt is the opposite of faith. But this is fake news. It isn't. you know? Disbelief is the opposite of faith. Actually, there is an interesting quote from the German-American theologian and philosopher. Many of you have heard, I'm sure, the name. Paul Johannes Tillich. Now, Tillich has said, doubt isn't the opposite of faith. It is actually an element of faith. What is disbelief? It refers to a willful refusal to believe, while doubt refers to an inner uncertainty. Now, please never forget, always share your uncertainties, your insecurities, your dilemmas and life questions with God. He longs to have a meaningful conversation with you. Myth number 2, many people think that doubt is kind of unforgivable, but it isn't. Again, fake news. God never condemns us when we question Him, when we talk to Him honestly from the heart. Scripture makes this very clear. We have instances, for instance, Job and King David in the Bible repeatedly questioned God. They were never punished for it. Actually, God addressed their doubts. God is big enough to handle all of our doubts and all of our questions. He is big enough. He created the universe. Myth number 3, many people think that when we struggle with God, it automatically means that we lack faith. Now, this is again fake news. To the contrary, struggling with God is often a guaranteed sign that we have, life faith, a faith that lives. Living faith. I can think of numerous Bible patriarchs like Abraham or Jacob, who actually literally fought with God. Now, it leads me to plead with you once again, never forget, if we never struggle, our faith will never grow. Embrace those struggles when they come, and you will come up stronger in faith. Now, I don't know about you, but I happen to be an adult. Yes, I'm an old man, according to my daughter. I find it very hard to keep believing in a non-stop way. It wasn't always like this. I'm a first-generation Adventist. I converted at the age of 16. I'm one of the first 2 pastors, ministers from Albania ever. For many years after my conversion, I did not recall having any issues with my faith. I was so happy to find the Adventist church, the right church. It was all fine, sve u redu. Nowadays, I find myself envying the younger Julian. Now, let me share with you from my personal experience. I was intensely involved over there. I was involved in everything. Some of you know this directly, and it's a pleasure for me to consider you friends. District pastor, church planter, mission administrator, this and that and this and that, all to the glory of God. But about 4.5 years ago, my wife and I, we had to make a difficult decision, but necessary in the circumstances, and we left Albania and we moved to Germany. Now, it was okay for me to rest a little bit, took some time, some break from working as a minister. But obviously, I missed working as a pastor, which I'm doing right now, and I'm thankful to God that I can be a minister here in Northern England. But the whys came rolling in, where is that phone call from the church leaders, why this and why that, what am I doing here? I want to serve God, I want to work again. And my frustration continued, and I'm being very honest with you, until one day I realized how I was wrong. And when I read 2 verses, and I want you to open your Bibles in the Gospel of John, chapter 6, 28 to 29. Now, when the disciples asked Jesus, what must we do to do the work that God requires? Jesus answered, the work of God is this, to believe in the one that He has sent. Now, when we open dictionaries and commentaries of the Bible, the original Greek word for work, it actually means hard work, toil, labor, serious work. Now, Jesus clearly says here, it requires serious work to believe. Well, now I realize that finding it hard to keep believing does not mean that I don't believe. It means that believing is sometimes a difficult activity that I have to go through. I must admit that the concept of hard work is a bit controversial, at least in the part of the world where I come from originally. I hope I'm not wrong on this one, but the tendency in our part of the world, in the Balkans, is to admire people that are smart, and cheeky, rather than the ones that are honest or hardworking. But I want to bring this closer to home. There is one individual that I guarantee all of you know that he has constantly believed in hard work. I'm so thankful to see him as an excellent example. He doesn't need any introduction. Let's just say that he is someone who is currently ranked world number 1, broj 1, by the Association of Tennis Professionals, Nole. Now let's see what the legend himself has to say about hard work in this short video.
I don't think it's a mojo, but it's just something I work very hard for, and I'm not the only one. There's many players that, of course, are playing to win, to prove to themselves and to others that everything that they have worked for and all the energy and effort that they put into is paying off. When you're winning, of course, it seems like all the hard work that you put into makes sense. So that's how I look at it.
Nole, preach some more, right? Now, in another comment he says, I know that success does not come at once. It is not a thing achieved overnight. It is the result of many, many, many years of working and trying to achieve goals. Now, dear friends, it's the same thing with faith. Hard work, yes, but absolutely worth it. It's like going to the gym or going jogging, you know. We cannot be all tennis champions. But it isn't really fun, right? Have you seen a jogger smile? Probably not. But the non-smiling bit does not bother the joggers. They know they will smile in the long run. Now, dear friends, Jesus says it requires serious work to believe. So now I get it. Finding it hard to believe or to keep believing does not mean that I don't believe or that I have weak faith. It means that believing is often a difficult yet rewarding activity that I have to go through. Like marriage. You know, last month my wife and I celebrated 15 years of marriage. That is the equivalent of 15 years of jogging and going to the gym. So it's a real mystery, you know, why I'm not super fit right now. Shame. Now, dear friends, for some people, faith or believing comes easy. I say how wonderful for them. For some others, it doesn't come, you know, at all. They don't give it a chance. And I say, how sad for them. But the clear majority of us, we are in the middle. What seems to be our everyday challenge is facing doubts, but working hard to give faith a chance. Don't feel bad if your experience is not that fantastic as somebody else's. It's actually a comforting thought to realize that we're in this together. Yes, we are in this together when we triumph, but also when we struggle. I give you just one tip. When in doubt, borrow some faith. And it's a beautiful tradition in the Balkans. You know, neighbors, helping neighbors, showing solidarity. Borrow some faith from somebody. Somebody you look up to, whether it's your pastor, your elder, your best friend, your close relative. Never be shy or embarrassed to borrow some faith, just to get you going. And then you will realize you will lend some faith. Somebody else will borrow from you very soon. Do you have doubts today? It's okay if you do. But don't just stay there. Start now with the hard work of believing. It is worth it. Turn to Jesus. Bring your doubts with you. He will never turn you away. He's a true friend. And there is a song that says, and I close with this, what a friend we have in Jesus, all our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. Have we trials and temptations? Is there trouble anywhere? If we have, don't be discouraged. Take it to the Lord in prayer. May God bless you. Take care.
So let's say you want to describe the feeling of anticipating a future that's better than the present. You might be giddy or excited or maybe unsure, but most of us know that experience. We call it hope. It's a state of anticipation, and it's crucial for healthy human existence. And it's a really important concept in the Bible. In fact, there are many words for hope in the ancient languages of the Bible, and they're all fascinating. In the Old Testament, there are two main Hebrew words translated as hope. The first is yachal, which means simply to wait for. Like in the story of Noah and the ark, as the flood waters recede, Noah had to yachal for weeks. The other Hebrew word is kavah, which also means to wait. It's related to the Hebrew word kav, which means cord. When you pull a kav tight, you produce a state of tension until there's release. That's kavah, the feeling of tension and expectation while you wait for something to happen. The prophet Isaiah depicts God as a farmer who plants vines and kavahs for good grapes. Or the prophet Micah talks about farmers who both kavah and yachal for morning dew to give moisture to the land. So in biblical Hebrew, hope is about waiting or expectation. But waiting for what? In the period of Israel's prophets, as the nation was sinking into self-destruction, Isaiah said, "At this moment, the Lord's hiding his face from Israel, so I will kavah for him." The only hope Isaiah had in those dark days was the hope for God himself. You find the same notion of hope all over the book of Psalms, where these words appear over 40 times. In almost every case, what people are waiting for is God. Like in Psalm 130, the poet cries out from a pit of despair, "I kavah for the Lord, let Israel yachal for the Lord, because he's loyal and will redeem Israel from its sins." Biblical hope is based on a person, which makes it different from optimism. Optimism is about choosing to see in any situation how circumstances could work out for the best. But biblical hope is not focused on circumstances. In fact, hopeful people in the Bible often recognize there's no evidence things will get better, but you choose hope anyway. Like the prophet Hosea, he lived in a dark time when Israel was being oppressed by foreign empires, and he chose hope when he said God could turn this valley of trouble into a door of hope, like the day when Israel came up from the land of Egypt. God had surprised his people with redemption back in the days of the Exodus, and he could do so again. So it's God's past faithfulness that motivates hope for the future. You look forward by looking backward, trusting in nothing other than God's character. It's like the poet of Psalm 39 who says, "And now, O Lord, what else can I kavah for? You are my yachal." In the New Testament, the earliest followers of Jesus cultivated the similar habit of hope. They believed that Jesus' life, death, and resurrection was God's surprising response to our slavery to evil and death. The empty tomb opened up a new door of hope, and they used the Greek word elpis to describe this anticipation. The Apostle Peter said that Jesus' resurrection opened up a living hope, that people can be reborn, to become new and different kinds of humans. More than once, the Apostle Paul says the good news about Jesus announces the elpis of glory. In both cases, this elpis is based on a person, the risen Jesus, who has overcome death. And this hope wasn't just for humans. The apostles believed that what happened to Jesus in the resurrection was a foretaste of what God had planned for the whole universe. In Paul's words, it's a hope that creation itself will be liberated from slavery to corruption into freedom when God's children are glorified. So Christian hope is bold, waiting for humanity and the whole universe to be rescued from evil and death. And some would say it's crazy, and maybe it is. But biblical hope isn't optimism based on the odds. It's a choice to wait for God to bring about a future that's as surprising as a crucified man rising from the dead. Christian hope looks back to the risen Jesus in order to look forward. And so we wait. That's what the biblical words for hope are all about.
Marianne Dyrud, pastor iz Norveške, vođa mladih i trenutno sekretarica Unije u Danskoj. Marianne je društveni introvert. Voli druženje i dobre prijatelje, ali ne nužno i velike gužve. Uživa sedeći u kafeu sa dragim osobama uz hranu, šoljicu čaja. Budući da je teolog entuzijasta za čajem, ovaj napitak predstavlja neophodnost i razgovor o raznim životnim pitanjima. Može joj se desiti da se izgubi u muzeju umetnosti, da je opčini muzičko delo koje progovara njenom srcu ili pak maleni detalji u prirodi. Voli da putuje, upoznaje nove ljude i da vodi smislene razgovore koji prodiru duboko. Zaista je fascinirana ljudima i uživa slušajući najrazličitije životne priče.
Hi, I'm Dyrud. I live in Denmark, and I would just like to know how it feels for you where you are. Are you quarantined at home? Are you working? Are you studying? Are you living in front of a screen to see your friends? Are you able to go outside at all? I must confess, last week I went to a cafe just to meet with a friend. A good distance. We did, we followed the rules, and but it was so strange just to go downtown, and I've never seen Copenhagen this empty and without hardly any people. It was really strange. It was like living in another world. And we walked around, we had our hot drinks and our cake, and we just sat and talked. It was so nice when because I live by myself when I'm working down here, and there's just like nobody to talk to at home unless I pick up the phone and FaceTime somebody or go on Messenger or Skype or Zoom or whatever else. And then I see people through work. But it's not the same as just spending time with a friend or your family. How are you dealing with this? Are you panicking, or you feel like people are very far away from you? I'm curious, how has it been for you the last few weeks? Because I know I cannot travel. I haven't seen my family since Christmas. I haven't seen my friends for a while. I cannot go anywhere else but the grocery store. Every so often I go to the office when there's hardly anybody there, because we're not allowed to go and work there unless we keep our distance. These are serious times. Corona, or COVID-19, is serious and does not look at age, gender, race, or social status before it jumps at you. That's why we have to come up with terms like social distance or physical distance. I mean, physical distance, yeah, we've had that before, but social distance? Who talked about that before Corona? This is a global pandemic, but there are people who have survived this before us. It's just that before in time, they didn't have social media or apps that could register if you had somebody who was contagious close to you. So how did they know at that time? In the old ages, you had to either dress in a certain way or indicate your health status in some other way. Like you would keep your distance, of course, or you would have to shout really loud that you're unclean. Or some even may be wearing masks somehow, or something over their head to indicate that they were sick. Today, some people are wearing masks, and we are told to stay inside, keep our distance, wash our hands, and not get too close to people. And I don't know how many songs have been written, and there are quite a lot of things going on the internet about toilet paper and people hoarding and lines and whatever else. But in Luke 8, there are some stories actually about social distance and physical distance. In the middle of the chapter, Jesus meets a man in the graveyard, banned, and he's definitely kept at a social and physical distance. I mean, hello, living in a graveyard, you became unclean if you walked into a graveyard. If you went to a funeral, you became unclean. And here this guy is living in a graveyard. He's just unclean all the time, and whoever gets to go and visit him is also unclean. I mean, this is his permanent address, and this is where Jesus meets him, in the middle of his uncleanliness. He is living barely among the dead. Who would want to go there and meet up with him, give him a hug, and risk being hit with the chains? I totally understand when I read the story about him that people kept their distance, and I think you would too. But you can just imagine how it was for him. This is not the only story about physical and social distance in Luke, especially Luke 8. It seems like Luke is playing on this. Well, he is having one story after the other. First, about this guy out in the graveyards, and then a woman who was ritually unclean. She had bleedings for 12 years. Normally, a woman was unclean while she had her period. Everything she touched, everything she sat on, whoever she became or she was close to became unclean. So in other words, this woman would easily understand our terminology when we're talking about physical distance or social distance or whatever else. She had experienced that for 12 years, not only for a couple of weeks or a couple of months like we have now, but let us just read the Message version from Luke 8, verse 40 and onwards. On his return, Jesus was welcomed by a crowd. They were all there expecting him. A man came up, Jairus by name. He was president of the meeting place. He fell at Jesus' feet and begged him to come to his home because his 12-year-old daughter, his only child, was dying. Jesus went with him, making his way through the pushing, jostling crowd. In the crowd that day there was a woman who for 12 years had been afflicted with hemorrhages. She had spent every penny she had on doctors, but no one had been able to help her. She slipped in from behind and touched the edge of Jesus' robe. At that very moment, her hemorrhaging stopped, and Jesus said, "Who touched me?" When no one stepped forward, Jesus said, "But Master, we got crowds of people on our hands. Dozens have touched you." Jesus insisted, "Someone touched me. I felt power discharging from me." Now, this woman had faith and she was brave. She had risked everything before she did this. She was probably pale. Maybe she had dark circles around her eyes. She had been isolated. No hugs, no kisses, no social time in cafes, no touch at all, because everybody who touched her would be unclean. 12 years. Just think about that. No hugs, no touch, no pecking on the cheek, no nothing. And here she had spent everything that she owned to get well. She had gone to all the doctors she knew, the good ones, the bad ones, and everything in between. And so she had spent 12 dark years of her life without any strength, no social life, not being able to be with family or friends. She was constantly ritually unclean, weak, and in lack of iron. And she was constantly bleeding. But as we know from the former stories of Jesus, he does not mind the untouchables. He does not mind the unclean, the ones who other people do not want to get close to or touch or be with. Jesus felt that power go out of him. He knew he had been touched by someone who believed he could heal. There's a special touch. That is why he stops in this crowd where people are hanging on to him. But there was a difference in just jostling to get ahead and get close to Jesus just because it has some status. But this was a person that he could feel that she believed, and she was desperate. She needed to get close to Jesus. And he could feel that immediately. She was healed, and as Luke writes in the next few verses, when the woman realized that she could not remain hidden, she knelt trembling in front of him. In front of all the people, she blurted out her story, why she touched him, and how at that same moment she was healed. Jesus said, "Daughter, you took a risk of trusting me, and now you are healed and whole. Live well, live blessed. Jesus commends her for taking a chance to touch him, to believe that he could heal her and make her well. She risked everything, and he knew that. He also took a risk because people around him would have thrown her away for getting close to Jesus. I mean, she was unclean after all, but they did not. Maybe she didn't say anything. Maybe she hid. Maybe she drew her cape around her so nobody would see how pale she was. But I see that so many times in the Bible and in the New Testament where Jesus goes against the ritual rules. He touches women. He touches the leper. He touches the blind, the lame, the untouchables. He restores people to be socially and physically included instead of distanced. Right now, we're living in a time where this is difficult. But we can still do our part to give love and care for people who feel distanced and out of place. I do not know where you are at this time, but I hope you feel the touch of Jesus if you're sick, and that you feel his love in your heart to give away. The mission of Jesus was to give peace, love, and hope for the future. My hope in this time is that we can do the same for the people we meet and serve. And I don't know where you are at this time, but I hope that, and my prayer for you is that God's peace and presence will be with you. And may you feel his healing touch on your body and in your heart. And may your life be that blessing to the people that you meet. And I pray that you will feel that God is close to you, that he will be present in your life in a very physical way, even though that you are maybe socially distanced or physically distanced where you are. And I pray that you will feel that God hears your prayers and that you know that you can be a blessing in every little way where you are. Because even though we're by ourselves, we can take up the telephone and make that call and just smile to people in the street, even though they're wearing the masks and they're looking scared. We can still be a blessing. So that's my prayer for you and for all of us, that we can be looking at this as a mission opportunity and be a blessing, even in the small things. Amen.
Već 16 godina Dario Kovačević radi kao pastor, a trenutno je u crkvi u Zagrebu. Tokom ove pandemije redovni je učesnik u emisijama studija Glas nade. Voli da propoveda i slavi Boga pesmom, a isto tako više voli da priča o Bogu nego o sebi. Obišao je puno zemalja, ali kako kaže, vrlo rado dođe u Srbiju. Sigurna sam da ga većina vas zna iz Kragujevca, ali ako ne, onda možda sa sportskih terena, jer voli da igra sve sportove sa loptom. Ukoliko niste upoznali Darija, sada imate priliku. Sigurna sam da će vas oduševiti njegov način iznošenja duhovne poruke, koji je prožet mnogobrojnim primerima i iskustvima, uz njegov neizostavan karakterističan humor.
Dragi mladi, lijepo vas pozdravim iz Zagreba, zahvaljujući vašem pastoru Ivanu Popoviću koji me prije pitao da li bi bio voljan neku duhovnu misao vama za poslijepodne reći, pa evo, ja sam se odazvao vesela srce jer sam uvijek imao lijepu suradnju sa vama i sa Zoranom dok je bio i imam lijepa uspomene uvijek kad sam bio u Srbiji kao govornik i sada evo ovim putem vas pozdravljam i zahvaljujem Bogu što tako lijepo radite u Srbiji. Uglavnom, mi se sada trenutno nalazimo u mom privremenom stanu gdje sam se preselio zbog potresa i trenutno, dakle, smo u kuhinji, a s obzirom da smo u kuhinji, ja sam za vas pripremio, odnosno danas ćemo zajedno skuhati jedan duhovni obrok koji će se sastojati od Biblije, Svetog pisma, pa ćemo trebati isto tako put Kristu i naravno jedan prstohvat soli, jer današnja tema je ili si sol ili samo soliš pamet. Zašto je sol tako bitna? Vjerujem da bez soli bili bi zakinuti i to na mnogim područjima našeg života. Jedno od njih je dakle kulinarstvo, gdje ja bez soli ne mogu. Vjerujte mi, sve što jedem sve solim i kad kuham mora biti soli. Takav sam, tako da kad dođem kod vas na ručak pripremite sol. Druga stvar je, sol se koristi za terapiju, za medicinu i za estetiku i vjerujte mi da je sol tako dobra za kožu. Poglavito te neke kožne bolesti tipa psorijaza ili seboreja, sol jako to dobro izvlači. Zato mnogi ljudi idu na more i na mrtvo more gdje se kupaju i onda im se obnavlja zbog soli koža. Zatim, imali smo prilike sada tokom zime vidjeti da sol pomaže naravno da se otopi led. Dakle, sol ima silu da rastapa. I četvrta stvar, što je isto tako zanimljiva, nalazi se u činjenici da se sol koristi da se osoli meso kako ono ne bi trulilo. Dakle, da ublaži truljenje mesa. I zato su oni suhomesnati proizvodi uglavnom slani. To ima jako velike duhovne poveznice s onim što je zapravo Isus rekao. I zato idemo pročitati taj stih koji je toliko važan za nas. A nalazi se u Mateju 5. glavi 13. retku. Isus kaže sljedeće. Vi ste sol zemlji. Ali ako sol obljutavi, čim će se ona osoliti? Više nije ni za što, osim da se izbaci van, da je ljudi pogaze. Isus kaže sljedeće, on nije rekao imperativ, a imperativ je zapovjedni način gdje on rekao budite sol, ajde ja vam savjetujem budite. Ne, on kaže indikativ, a to je stanje, činjenično stanje. Kaže Isus, vi ste sol svijetu, poslije ću to ponoviti, vi ste svjetlo svijetu, dakle vi ste taj utjecaj. Nije sada na nastoj, nego vi jeste, ili jesi, ili nisi. Dakle, ili si čovjek koji daješ okus ovom bljutavom društvu, bljutavim razgovorima, ponašanju, ti trebaš dati okus da je to onako prihvatljivo. Ti si pozvan da terapeutski djeluješ i da ide glatko, da tamo gdje je onako nezgodno, gdje se sve raspada, da ti djeluješ terapeutski. Ti si pozvan da otapaš hladna srca, da svojim nastojanjem i životom daješ toplinu ovom hladnom svijetu. I ne samo to, zlo koje se umnožava iz dana u dan, zli će napredovati iz zla u gore. Mi smo ti koji sputavaju Sotonu u njegovoj namjeri da pokvari cijelu zemlju. Mi usporavamo napredak zla svojim djelima, riječima, ponašanjem i utjecajem. I zato Isus kaže, ne možete vi sakriti taj utjecaj. To je ono što je naša zadaća. Ne možeš ti glumiti. Jednostavno ne možeš glumiti. Ili jesi, ili nisi. Ili si bio sa mnom, ili nisi. I kako to izgleda? To se ne može sakriti. Utjecaj kojeg Bog nama daje, to se ne može sakriti. Jednoga jutra imao sam sastanak dolje u konferenciji, jedan fini ured, i kako sam bio gladan, tog jutra sam odlučio, dobio sam želju da ispečem prženice, dakle ono je kruh s jajima. A kako sam imao 15 minuta, a i sad imam 15 minuta, žurio sam se i rekao sam, idem ja sad na brzinu to ispeć, pa idem jest. Ja sam skinuo brzo sa sebe gornji dio, ali pošto mi se žurilo, nije mi se dalo sad cipele skidati jer sam došao dolje, kupio to. I ja rekao, idem ja sada to ispeć na brzinu. Ja sam to ispekao i pojeo i onda sam izribao ruke, onako, jako sam ih izribao, ko korona sad kad je onako morate pažljivo sve, rekao da ne bi smrdilo, umio sam se i obukao i odlazim ja na sastanak. I to sam došao čak malo ranije od ostalih. Ja sjedim tamo u uredu i dolazi naš vođa mladih i dobro jutro i kaže, ko je peko krafne, kaže. Krafne ili krofne. Ko je peko krofne? A meni neugodno, ja se pravio blesav, ništa ja ne znam. A zapravo cijela prostorija je imala okus po tom pečenju i cijeli hodnik je imao samo zbog hlača koji su se natopile tim mirisom. Ono s čim se mi hranimo ujutro, takav utjecaj ćemo i imati. Ako se mi družimo sa Bogom, takav će i utjecaj božanski biti. I sada Isus kaže, vi ste sol svijetu, zapravo ja ću biti utjecaj kroz vas, ali ako niste, onda ste opasno promašili. I zato nam Isus kaže, ili jesi ili nisi. I ne možemo to maknuti, ne možemo to lažirati, ne možemo to glumiti. To jednostavno isijava iz nas. Ili ćemo biti utjecaj na život, ili utjecaj na smrt. Ili ćemo biti miris na život, ili ćemo biti miris na smrt. I ono što nas Isus poziva, Bože, mene iskoristi danas. Ja želim biti utjecaj na dobro. Postavi me danas u takve okolnosti, kao sol, da dam utjecaj, da dam utjehu, da dam što treba. Samo me ti danas iskoristi. I onda Isus uzima tebe i onako baca sol tamo gdje treba. I kako je to bilo jednog dana, mene pozove jedna žena i kaže, gospodin, našla sam vaš broj telefona, a ja se baš molio, daj me Bože pošalji. I ja rekao, to je odgovor na molitvu, sad moram pomoći. Kaže ona, gospodine, dođite, molim vas, pomozite mi, trebam stanarinu platiti, izbacit će me van do ponedjeljka. I ja rekao, žao mi je žena da bude na ulici. Ja rekao, doći ja kod vas večeras već. To je bila subota navečer. I dođem ja, kad imao sam šta za vidjeti. A Romkinja, točno sam znao da će me ići muljat. I ja ljut. Pa Bože, šta si me poslao tu? Ja počeo pregovarati od sam sebi, ali i slušam odmah šta mi govori. I kaže meni Duh Sveti, pa evo poslao sam te tu, šta je sad? Ja slušam i ja pitam nju, dobro, koliko treba, kaže 200 eura, 1500 kuna, 200 eura. I kaže ona, možete mi molim vas to platiti na račun, pa ću ja to njemu na račun platiti. Prebacit ću njemu. Meni sve to čudno i ja rekao, dajte vi meni broj od vašeg stanodavca. I ona meni da broj. Ja rekao, idem ja sad provjeriti, nećete vi mene muljati. Ja nazovem čovjeka, a čovjek meni kaže, pa ona meni uvijek plaća na ruke i to kad stigne. Ja nju uhvatio da ona mene mulja, a i ovak sam već pretpostavljao. I ja se ujutro mučim, Bože, pa vidim mulja me, šta ću je davati novce kad me mulja? Ne volim kad me muljaju. Ali Duh Sveti kaže, čuj, ti si tražio, ja sam te poslao. Sad šta ćeš napraviti, napravi. Ali moraš isto znati da nije lijepo biti sebičan. Sve ima svoju cijenu. I ja uzimam novce, ali uzimam jednu knjigu. I odlazim kod nje, pušta me unutra. I ja rekao, Gospode, evo ja sam došao danas i evo sad me samo saslušati u par minuta pa ću vam nešto reći. Ja rekao, znate šta, gospođo, ja znam da ste vi mene smuljali, evo, pričao sam s čovjekom, vrlo je jednostavno za prepoznat da ste me lagali, manipulirali, ucjenjivali sa kršćanstvom, ali ja se uopće neću obazirati na to. Evo, izvolite 200 eura i htio bih vam samo nešto reći. Ja znam da vas je možda neko prisilio da to možda radite, pretpostavljam, možda vas i seksualno maltretiraju, zlostavljaju, ko zna šta sve iza stoji, ko zna što se dešava u vašem životu, možda vas neko i tuče, svakakih priča ima, ja ne znam, ali ja samo znam sljedeće, koliko god vi možda bili razočarani sa životom, koliko god se osjećali nesretno ili tužno ili besmisleno, ja vam želim nešto pokloniti. Ja vam želim pokloniti jednu knjižicu koja govori o Kristu, koji vas iznimno voli. Jer pazite, ja sam zbog njega danas ovdje. Nisam ja dobar, nego je dobar onaj gore koji mene poslao k vama. I vidite, ja sam isto ovaj crni Dario, koji je i prašnjav, i jadan, i crn u duši, ali Bog me voli, Bog me nosi, Bog se brine za mene, tako i za vas, gospođo draga. On je mene poslao k vama, zbog njega se vi trebate osjećati i sigurno, i voljeno, i on vam vaše dostojanstvo vraća. Vi ste osoba koji puno vrijedite u Božjim očima, a njoj samo ovako suze klize i uzima ona knjigu i kaže, jaoj, pa ovo mi je vrijednije od 200 eura. I vjerujte mi, dragi moji, Bog nas želi danas koristiti. Ne treba toliko naše novce, nego treba našu službu, da budemo utjecaj, da ljude usmjeravamo na Isusa Krista, na onoga koji nas voli, na onoga koji nas cijeni, na onoga koji je ponio naše patnje i boli. I kad mi to prepoznamo, onda ćemo ga pustiti u naš život. A kad je on u našem životu, onda mi postajemo sol. Onda on djeluje kroz nas. Ili jesi sa Kristom, ili je on u tebi, ili nisi. Staro je nestalo, novo je evo nastalo. I vjerujte mi, danas boli me duša kad gledam koliko mnogo ljudi po internetu trati vrijeme ili na poručavanju nalazi, pa ko je pametniji, ko je bolje saznao, ko je u pravu, da li je ovo ili je ono. Hajmo se takmičiti ko je najpametniji u teološkim promišljanjima. Ali Isusa ne zanimaju teološka promišljanja, nego njega zanima tvoj odnos sa njim i koliko si spreman njemu vratiti službom koju će on obaviti kroz tebe. Isus je sve u svemu. Ili si sol ili samo soliš pamet. Jer na kraju svijeta će biti bitno samo da li si ti bio utjecaj na dobro, miris na dobro ili nisi. Jer kaže da će se sol izbaciti van. Onaj sluga će se izbaciti van jer nije služio, nije dao okus, nije dao miris, nije dao toplinu u ovom svijetu i nije ovaj svijet zaustavio u zlo, nego ga još više gurao. Dragi moji, ti si veliki utjecaj kojeg Bog želi koristiti u posljednje vrijeme. Na tebi je da li ćeš pustiti Isusa u svoj život i biti sol ili ćeš samo soliti pamet kao mnogi. Zato nas Isus potiče. Držite se mene i ostvarit ćete misiju za koju vas šaljem. Da budete blagoslov. Ja ću te blagosloviti da budeš blagoslov. Ti ćeš biti sol jer ti jesi sol jer ja sam u tebi. A koji u meni, taj rodi mnogo roda. Pa evo, nadam se da ćete i vi roditi mnogo roda i da će vaša sol biti tako predivnog okusa koja će utjecati na svijet i promijeniti svijet. I neka vas Bog obilno blagoslovi u tome. Vidimo se.
Veliko hvala Marianne, Julian i konačno Dario za sve poruke koje ste nam uputili ovog popodneva. Molit ćemo se naravno i šta god da ti prija, molim te, ili zatvori oči ili pogni glave, a na neki način se koncentriši. Najveći izazov je moliti se preko uređaja, ali mislim da možemo i na ovaj način ćemo ponovo biti zajedno. Molimo se. Oče naš, najveća nada je u tebi. Želimo da ta nada koju osjećamo u svom srcu se prelije. Ono što tražimo jeste da se ispuni obećanje koje si dao, da će svojim duhom u naše srce preliti ljubav koja je u tvome srcu. Pomozi da iz te ljubavi se vidi da sa tobom danas, kako živimo, odsjajava tvoj karakter, da ljudi oko nas u ovim situacijama, u ovim okolnostima u kojima smo mogu da dožive, da vide, da znaju, da sledimo tebe, da smo tvoji, da mogu da kažu, znamo tačno ko si, Božji svetac. To je naša molitva, naša želja, upućujemo u Hristovo ime. Amin. Ono što slijedi, znate sami, jesu Zoom radionice, s ovim nije sve gotovo. Sve linkove za 3 različite radionice možete pronaći na Facebook stranici ili Instagram stranici je u Mladi. Tako da nastavimo druženje i vidimo se za samo par minuta na tim radionicama.